What's up, and welcome into Fantasy Baseball today on Wednesday, June 26th. I am Frank Stampfl, joined by Chris Towers. Today on the show, it's time to fire up the Worryometer. We're looking at you, Gerrit Cole. Hunter Brown has been awesome. We have a group of hitters who are heating up and much more. But let's jump in.
The impossible has happened!
Well, there's only one place to start, Chris. Player of the night for all the wrong reasons.
Yeah, I saw some discussion on Twitter. I think Scott was talking to someone about like, oh my goodness gracious, and how it should be like a good player. And unfortunately, sometimes bad performances make us say, oh my goodness gracious as well. And that's the case with Gerrit Cole's performance on Tuesday night. His second start back from the IL, and his velocity was down significantly. 1.3 miles per hour down overall, average 95.4 miles per hour with the fastball. But if you look into the game log, it was even worse than that because he came out early on and looked more or less where he normally does. 96, 97, 99 miles an hour in the first inning. And then right at the 15th fastball that he threw, the velocity drops from like 98 to 91. And that was the slowest pitch that Gerrit Cole threw as a fastball in this start. But from that point on, he was maxing out at 95. Now, after the start, Cole did say that that was an intentional decision, that he threw a lot. He was a high-stress first inning. He didn't want to push himself too hard after that, and that's why his velocity was down. Okay, but this is a guy coming back from an elbow injury, former Cy Young winner, or last year's Cy Young winner, should be said. And he's been pretty bad, especially in this start. First start, okay, you can give him a break, but 6 earned runs over 4 innings of work, 7 hits, 4 walks, 4 home runs. First Yankees pitcher, actually good company. First Yankees pitcher since Roger Clemens to give up 4 walks and 4 home runs. If I read that note correctly, there was a great quote from Roger Clemens when it happened to him. His mom threw out the first pitch in that game, and the quote from Roger Clemens was, "We should just let her pitch the rest of the game." So that was funny. But yeah, I don't know. Where are you at on Gerrit Cole right now?
I think it was pretty worrisome. At risk of being called a homer, I do want to remind everyone, this is his spring training, right? Mm-hmm. This is his second start, and afterwards, they're talking to Aaron Boone, they're talking to Aaron Judge. Like, those guys didn't seem worried. Judge brought up, literally said, this is Gerrit Cole's spring training. I want him out there every 5th start. Like, he's the ace, typical whatever, Aaron Judge PR type stuff. But I think that's a fair reminder, and I don't think there's no cause for concern here. Mm-hmm. Everything that you read off, the fact that his velocity dropped as much as it did in that second inning, and then he was so ineffective. He gave up 2 home runs in that second inning once the velocity was down. So I think there is definitely cause for concern. I think barring some kind of Gerrit Cole-esque outing this weekend at the Blue Jays, you got to bench him for the foreseeable future, which kind of sucks because you held on to him all year and you just figured, all right, once he's back, he's Gerrit Cole, but it obviously has not gone that way.
And the thing to keep in mind, as you mentioned, this is his spring training. He's only made 5 starts this season because he missed all of spring training, missed the first 2 months of the season, and only made the 3 rehab starts, only got up to 68 pitches on his rehab outings. So, when we were talking back in like early June, I had said I didn't expect Cole to make his debut until July. I figured they were basically going to treat June like spring training, let him build up. And instead they kind of pushed the timetable forward, got him back up, on the 19th. And maybe they should have been a little more cautious about that. Not that I think there's much risk of re-injury. There obviously is some, but that's impossible to quantify. But just, yeah, Gerrit Cole doesn't quite look right yet. And I agree. We'll watch the next one closely, but if it's another poor outing, another 4-inning outing especially, I just don't know if you can trust him to give you the kind of length that you need, let alone the quality of the start.
Yeah. Even if it's a 5-inning, 1 run, 2 runs, 4 or 5 strikeouts, just like a mediocre solid start, I probably will not be all that comfortable with putting him in my lineup next week. That depends on the matchup. I haven't looked into it yet. But yeah, it's pretty worrisome. We'll see where Gerrit Cole goes from here. Oh my goodness gracious, for me, I'm just going to choose the entire team that blasted off against Gerrit Cole, and that is the New York Mets. They are hot right now. They have won 10 of their last 12 games. They won the first game of the Subway Series here, 9-7. And wanted to highlight a few different hitters. Brendan Nimmo, 1 for 4 with his 12th home run. Last 10 games, he is on fire. 415 batting average, 5 homers, 15 runs, 14 RBI. As we pointed out all season, the expected stats have looked great for Brendan Nimmo, and it looks like those numbers are finally coming around. Mark Vientos, 2 for 4 with a double dong. Last 7 games for him, batting .423 with 4 homers. And overall, he's batting .297 with a .925 OPS. And Harrison Bader, 2 for 4 with a sock and a shoe revenge game against the Yankees. His 5th home run, his 11th steal. We'll come back to Harrison Bader in a little bit, but I want to focus on Mark Vientos, Chris. We highlighted last week, he's continues to hit. He's hitting for power. Exit velocities are great. Don't like the fact that he puts the ball on the ground as much as he does. But at 44% rostered, third base, kind of a middling position. It feels like that number should be higher for Mark Vientos.
Yeah, I mean, look, the ground ball rate too high, 54.5%. That's going to limit what he can do. But the big difference between what Mark Vientos was doing last season, what he's doing this season, is he was hitting too many ground balls last season as well. But what was really killing him was the 31% strikeout rate. Well, this season, he's got that down to 22%. And it's basically come from improvements across the board in plate discipline and, the contact rate. He is swinging at more pitches in the zone, swinging at fewer pitches outside of the zone. That's exactly what you want to see. His zone contact rate up from 71.7% to 75.3%, making more contact on pitches out of the strike zone as well, which doesn't really matter as much, but still keeps with the theme that while I think the ground ball rate makes it unlikely that Mark Vientos has any chance to sustain his current 925 OPS, or actually it's like 925 after today. I don't think that's going to happen, but he hits the ball hard. He's making more contact. He tends to pull the ball when he does hit it in the air. So I do think Mark Vientos is someone that you can look at and say, okay, 925 OPS, that's not sustainable, but his expected WOBA is up to 353. That's a very solid mark. That's well above average at this point. And again, I'm even skeptical that he'll keep that up, but yeah, he's 43% rostered, something like that, 44% rostered. I think that probably needs to be more in the 70% range now.
I'll throw some names your way. Would you drop any of these players for Mark Vientos? And first up is Ke'Bryan Hayes. He's 65% rostered.
I'm totally fine with that, yeah.
Justin Turner is also 65%.
I think that's fine.
Michael Busch is 58%.
Yeah, probably. I guess I haven't looked too closely into what Busch has done lately. I know he had a really tough May.
Heating back up, not hitting for much power, though.
I think I'd be okay with going with Vientos because, Busch has the 33% strikeout rate of his own. Quality of contact, good, but given the strikeout rate, it's going to be hard to optimize that. So, yeah, I think I'd be okay with that in Roto at least.
Yeah, I think I'd be good with that too. Jake Berger, 54% rostered.
Yeah, I don't really see much reason not to.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think the closest one is Joey Ortiz, who's 67% rostered. He hit another home run here on Tuesday. And at times I feel like this is a cop-out if you say, oh, this guy in head-to-head points, this guy in Roto. But man, Joey Ortiz's skill set for a points league, he walks so much. He's getting on base. The strikeout rate is even lower than Vientos. He actually does chip in a few steals too. He just feels like such a good points league player. I think I'd probably just take Joey Ortiz in both formats, but it's razor thin for me. I like both of these guys a lot.
Yeah, I give Joey Ortiz the edge in all formats. That's Joseph Ortiz in CBS Sports Leagues, by the way.
Yeah, who do we have to talk to fix that? Because I feel like
there's some weird, I think we still have it as Nathaniel Lowe. Or no, we have it as Nate Lowe, but he's Nathaniel Lowe everywhere. We have it Joshua Lowe, but he's Josh. Yeah. It's a weird David John Hertz. It's an interesting.
Just so everyone knows, we don't have anything to do with that on this podcast. So maybe we'll find out who does. Let's quickly talk about Harrison Bader, Chris, who is having his best month yet. In June, he's batting .273. He's got 3 homers. The counting stats are there: 3 steals, .840 OPS. He does sit out every 3rd or 4th game. 17% rostered is really low. I think in 15-team, 5 outfielder roto leagues for sure. 12-team roto with 5 outfielders, he's probably right on the fringe. What do you think about Bader?
I think he's pretty much just a steal specialist and not an especially special steal specialist, but he's not a 0, as an overall hitter. He's hitting right around 270 for the season. Very little power, but I don't know. In deeper 5 outfielder leagues, he's okay, but not someone that I think needs to be rostered everywhere for sure.
Yeah, I think something like a 260, 10 to 12 homers, 20 plus steals is probably a reasonable expectation, assuming Harrison Bader stays healthy, because obviously that has been a big issue for him. Oh my goodness. Did you see Hunter Green throw up on the mound, Chris?
Yeah.
It's hot out there.
Yeah, just like threw a fastball, turned around, yacked on the mound. I think Brian Reynolds is in the box, and they kind of cut to him, and he's like, that was apparently Hunter Green also threw up during at some point his previous start. He's been having trouble with the heat, staying hydrated. It was a hot one here, very humid. So that seems to explain it. Overall, it was a pretty bad start for Hunter Green, but given the circumstances, I think it is understandable. And his velocity was fine. It wasn't a great start, certainly, but I remain pretty optimistic about Hunter Green on the whole. But maybe we can get him like an IV solution before the game next time.
Oh my goodness gracious. Game of the night. The Guardians at the Orioles, back and forth, heavyweight bout between two of the best teams in baseball right now. The Guardians wound up winning 10-8. I think the Orioles are on a 5 or 6 game losing streak right now, which is not like them, obviously. But Jose Ramirez keeps on mashing, 2 for 5 with his 21st home run. Bo Naylor showing some signs of life recently. He went 3 for 4 with a double and 3 runs over his last 5 games. He has 7 hits, and one of those being a home run. Gunnar Henderson, the guy looks unstoppable right now. 2 for 3 with 2 walks and his 25th home run. He added 3 runs scored. Anthony Santander hit his 21st home run, his 12th of the month of June. And Jordan Westburg continued his breakout season, 4 for 4 with a walk and an RBI. He is batting .283 with an .853 OPS. Lots of names here, Chris. Anything to add? Maybe on Bo Naylor. I think he's just someone to watch. I don't think you need to add him yet because it's not eye-popping stats or anything, but he's slowly coming around, maybe.
Yeah, I think in 2 catcher leagues, like I have Bo Naylor in a couple spots, and there was one league where I added Ben Rice this week, but I did still start Bo Naylor this week. I'm happy I did based on this performance, but that's a situation where if you're in a spot where you can roster 3 catchers and you're just trying to chase some upside, I think pairing Bo Naylor with, Patrick Bailey's still pretty widely available. I like him quite a bit. Ben Rice has some upside. There's another Hunter Goodman is catcher eligible. He's got 7 games at Coors Field. I'm okay carrying 3 catchers when it's 3 of those 4 and just seeing what happens over the next couple of weeks. I think there's significant amount of upside across the board with all those, and that includes Bo Naylor, who, remember, last year was awful to start when he got called up and then started to get hot as he went on. So maybe it's just, it takes him a little while to get going every season. Maybe it's something there, but I still think there's plenty of upside with Bo Naylor worth chasing.
Yeah, I do like the Patrick Bailey call as well. I was updating my infield rankings on Tuesday, and I think I moved Bailey up to 15th or 16th in my catcher rankings. So I'm pretty excited about what he's done so far this season. The StatCast numbers look great as well. Wanted to quickly mention Jose Ramirez and Gunnar Henderson, by the way, just their pace numbers entering Tuesday. They obviously went up after this one. Jose Ramirez on pace for 43 homers, 32 steals, 127 runs, 149 RBI. Gunnar Henderson on pace for 49 homers, 27 steals, 137 runs, 110 RBI. I know we were talking about a redraft. Maybe we'll do that around July 4th or the All-Star break, something like that. But both of those guys seem like easy top 5, 6, 7 players rest of season. Yeah.
I mean, it's so funny because with Jose Ramirez, it's like he dropped to like the late first, early second round range. His ADP was 15.4.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like there wasn't much change in his production last season. Like the OPS was down 30-ish points.
It was just
from 2022. Stats. But yeah, the counting stats were way off.
It was weird.
And he's at, I think he needs he have 3 RBI today. So he needs 8 more RBI to match last season's total. And he's played 74 games. He only needs, I don't know, around
homers to match last year's total.
Yeah. And
that's crazy.
I mean, that's the thing about like a Jose Ramirez is like whenever his draft price drops, when that happens in draft season, you should probably just take advantage of it because we know how steady he's been. We know that he's on a Hall of Fame trajectory. I don't know if that's a hot take, but that's just what I'm going to say because, I mean, he hasn't won an MVP yet, but he's probably got like 3 or 4 top 5 finishes. You should just bet on those guys aging really, really well. And Jose Ramirez is absolutely doing that.
Yeah, I think the next 3 or 4 years will probably be telling on the Hall of Fame case, but yeah, he might be on that fringe. We'll see with Jose Ramirez. Thanks to everyone for watching live. Make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. YouTube.com/fantasybaseball today. And if you enjoy the audio podcast, make sure to leave a 5-star rating and review on both Apple and Spotify. It really helps, and we do appreciate it. Let's take our first break, and when we return, we'll hit the news and notes right after this.
There's some new players in town, and they brought the plague.
You got my attention. You don't want that. Welcome to Kingstown.
Mayor of Kingstown. New season now streaming exclusively on Paramount Plus.
Welcome back in the news and notes. Kyle Tucker took swings off a tee on Sunday and could be cleared to begin running soon. He's been out since June 4th with a right shin contusion. Rangers GM Chris Young said that Josh Young, so interesting to say those names so close to each other when they're spelled so differently in the same sentence, but it is what it is. Josh Young is dealing with tendon inflammation and has and said a return before the end of this week is ambitious. It's just been a weird start to Josh Young's career. It's just so many injuries have popped up. When he's played, he's been pretty good though. Kodai Senga said Tuesday that he expects to begin a minor league rehab assignment next week. He's not likely to return until after the All-Star break. Bo Bichette returned from the IL. He was in the lineup batting leadoff. I did not write down his final numbers. Did he do anything in that game, Chris? Did you see Bo Bichette?
Nothing notable. Walked once, scored once. That was it. 0 for 4 otherwise.
Yeah, 0 for 4, 2 strikeouts, a walk, and a run scored for Bo. Edwin Diaz did not appeal his 10-game suspension and began serving it on Tuesday. Nick Lodolo was placed on the 15-day IL with a left finger blister, and pretty unfortunate. He's been really good and recently moved inside my top 30 starting pitchers, so don't love that. Brian Wu was placed on the 15-day IL with a right hamstring strain. Teoscar Hernandez has missed 2 straight for personal reasons. Starling Marte was placed.
He's back with the team, by the way. I think it was unfortunately a death in the family. Okay. But he was back with the Dodgers on Tuesday.
Starling Marte was placed in the IL with a right knee bone bruise. He's expected to be sidelined for at least 4 weeks. And for those who play in NL only leagues, Tyrone Taylor might matter to you. Nolan Arenado was back in the lineup after missing a pair of games with left forearm soreness. Astros manager Joe Espada said that Justin Verlander has yet to resume throwing. He's been shut down for more than a week with neck discomfort. Christian Encarnacion Strand will undergo season-ending surgery on his right wrist on July 11th. And whoever I make a bold prediction about next year, it just cross that name off your list. It seems to be the kiss of death when it comes to fantasy, because I was pretty excited about Encarnacion's trend. Things happen, obviously. Partially joking, partially not, but yeah, this one sucks. Mets manager Carlos Mendoza said Christian Scott has a good chance for being called up, as the team has a stretch of 17 games in 17 days that begins on Friday. Christian Scott is currently 45% rostered, so if you want to pick him up, I think now is the time to do so. Chris Paddock was placed on the IL with right forearm fatigue, and there was a report that one of their pitching prospects, David Festa, is a candidate to replace Paddock in the rotation. As soon as Thursday, I think he could get the call to just fill in for Chris Paddock. And Festa, he must have slowed down recently, because I know the numbers were really great early on in the season, but it's a 3.77 ERA, a 1.29 whip, 87 strikeouts over 59 and 2/3 innings. Anything there, Chris? Who would you rather stash, David Festa or Christian Scott?
Probably Christian Scott. Minor league numbers are a little better across the board. Festa has some control issues. He's had trouble keeping the ball in the yard this year, although that might just be that everybody has trouble keeping the ball in the yard at AAA these days. But I think I would prefer Christian Scott. I know you've got him a little lower in the rundown, but I'm actually pretty interested in Hayden Birdsong, who I originally read as Harvey Birdman. And he's getting the call to start Wednesday against the Cubs. And he has gotten very little hype. He was like a fringe top 10 prospect for the Giants coming into the season, but I think there's a lot to like here. He's only 22. He's big. Strikeout numbers have been really good this season. The fastball apparently was one of those like really good shape pitches in college that he then added a couple miles per hour to. He's averaging right around 95, 96 miles per hour with that pitch. He's got a slider, cutter, curveball, changeup that are all probably not as good as the fastball, but it's a full arsenal. So I'm interested to see what Hayden Birdsong again can do. He's only made 2 starts at AAA. They haven't been great, but he's a pretty interesting pitching prospect as well.
How would you rank the 3? It just in terms of dashing for now, Scott, Festa, and Birdsong.
Probably Scott, Birdsong, Festa.
Birdsong, by the way, is being called up to make his major league debut Wednesday against the Cubs. And I had the Giants game on. They were talking about it, and they admitted, and by they I mean like the Giants organization, Bob Melvin, that it's a little bit early. It's earlier than they would like with Birdsong, but they've just had so many injuries, performance. It feels like every start recently has just been a bullpen day for the Giants. So they need help, and as a result, that's why they are calling Birdsong up.
He's only thrown 90 pitches in a start once this season. I think it was his most recent start. He threw 91. So yeah, that makes sense. And it may not be long, but it also very much could be a situation where he surprises and ends up sticking around because he's good enough.
Couple other news items. Brandon Lau has missed 3 straight due to a broken right pinky toe. Ryan Weathers will be reevaluated later this week and could begin a throwing program. He's been out since June 7th due to a strained index finger on his pitching hand. Henry Davis will begin a rehab assignment at AA on Wednesday. He's been on the concussion IL since June 15th. And a few prospect updates. Jackson Holliday was reinstated from the AAA IL, and as part of his recovery, Holliday will exclusively play DH for multiple weeks because I believe it was a forearm injury or an elbow injury that he was with. So we'll see how he performs in the meantime, getting reinstated at AAA. And the Brewers option Carlos Rodriguez back to AAA. He was quite bad in his first 3 career starts. Worryometer, let's fire it up. 1, we are not worried about this player at all. 10, we are freaking out. Extremely worried. And I realized Gerrit Cole was part of this segment. We didn't give out a number, Chris. Where would you rank Gerrit Cole on the worryometer 1 to 10?
I'll go with a 6 for now. I'm not freaking out, but I'm not totally where I want to be on Gerrit Cole.
Let's talk about Luis Castillo, Chris. Someone I know you hold near and dear to your heart. He's allowed 4+ earned runs in 3 of his last 4 starts. He was at Tampa Bay, which they told me this was supposed to be a good matchup. So it didn't work out for Luis Castillo. 5 1/3, 4 runs allowed, 4 walks, 4 strikeouts. He only had 9 whiffs on 103 pitches. He is now up to a 3.79 ERA, a 121 whip. Some things have changed this season. The strikeout rate is down a bit. The swinging strike rate is down just over 2 percentage points. The fastball velocity is down 1 mile per hour from where it was last year, and he is allowing more barrels and home runs over the past 2 seasons. Less strikeouts means more balls in play, which means that's why we're probably seeing some of these home runs go out more frequently for Luis Castillo. Overall, Chris, where are you at on the worryometer 1 to 10 on Castillo?
I'd say probably a 3 or a 4. The fact that the velocity's been down since last season is a concern for sure. That would be the biggest red flag for me. Not that I think Castillo is hurt, but just that, his fastball was an elite pitch last year. I think he led all starters in swinging strike rate with that 4-seamer, 33%. That's a massive number for a 4-seamer. And look, 29%, which is where he's at this season. That's still really good. But, the changeup's been a little less effective. Is that because it's not playing off the fastball as well? Maybe there's something there. The sinker has been a bigger problem for him. So I can't say I'm not at all concerned. And that's what I want to say. I want to say I'm not at all concerned about Castillo. Mostly because we do this every year. There's always a stretch for Luis Castillo where it's like, oh, what's wrong with Luis Castillo? And then he ends up fine. The thing about Luis Castillo, though, that you've always had to keep in mind with him as a fantasy prospect pitcher is I know he is drafted as a top 5, top 10 starting pitcher pretty much every year. He's never really been that guy in terms of run prevention. He always has kind of a higher ERA than the other guys drafted around him. What Luis Castillo brings to the table is less consistent per start dominance and more projectable volume. This is a guy who really has only been on the IL, I think, twice in his career, really hasn't missed very much time. That's the thing that, yeah, he's struggling right now, but I still think by the end of the year, the volume's going to be so good that I have a hard time thinking that we're going to look back on this and say, yeah, you made a mistake drafting Luis Castillo.
And you're right. This could just be a little bit of a blip. His first 3 starts of the season, he allowed 4 earned runs each. And then his next 10 starts, he had a 2.01 ERA, a .97 whip. So he could go on one of those runs again. He seems a little bit less dominant than he did last year. And that's why I'm with you. I think it's probably like a 3 or 4. I'm not overly concerned, but there's a little bit of something there with Luis Castillo. What about Bobby Miller? He was pulled after just 2 innings at the White Sox. Another one. This is supposed to be one of the better matchups in baseball. 2 innings, 3 runs allowed, 3 walks to 1 strikeout. He only threw 55% of his pitches for strikes. Similarly to Gerrit Cole, working his way back from a shoulder injury. He's only made 5 total starts this season. There was 3 earlier on, 2 since returning from the IL. Where are you at on Bobby Miller 1 to 10?
I'm going to say 8 just because he's coming back from a shoulder injury and just hasn't looked right. Like he's still averaging 97 miles per hour with his fastball in this start. Well, that's a full mile per hour down from where he was earlier in the season and 2 miles per hour down from where he was last season. So, this is a guy in Bobby Miller that I want to say it's always felt like he's made 22 major league starts. So it's not like we have a huge sample size, but he is not someone who has gotten the kind of strikeout results that we expected. You watch him and it's like, man, this should be an overpowering pitcher. And it's kind of like peak Noah Syndergaard, where he was really good, but not quite as good as we expected him to be. And then you start looking at, well, he's lost a couple miles per hour on the fastball. Dave Roberts talked about he just didn't have the feel today. I think the quote was like, changeup was a ball out of his hands. Well, the changeup's been his best swing and miss pitch this season, and he's made it his number 2 pitch overall. So not having that one, it's going to be hard to survive. I want to be patient, though. I'm certainly not dropping Bobby Miller, but I also don't think you can start him for his next start, which is, where is his next start?
I think he was a 2-star pitcher for this week, so he should line up for another one. I think it's against the Giants.
Yeah, I'll just leave it at you probably can't start him right now. I will say wait until Bobby Miller gives you a reason to start him.
If he is not on your team, would you look to buy low on him right now? The names we routinely bring up as sell high candidates: Seth Lugo, who had another great start here on Tuesday, Ronel Blanco, and somebody like Hunter Brown, who we'll talk about later, and he's on an awesome run right now. Would you try and offer up any of those three to get Bobby Miller if you could?
Yeah, I mean, those guys are all, if I'm remembering correctly, I actually wrote about this today. Lugo for sure, and Ronel Blanco are both among the top 5 in the biggest gap between their ERA and their FIP. Tyler Anderson's another one before today. Had a 2-run difference between his ERA and FIP. So yeah, if you could turn any of those guys into Bobby Miller, I think I'd do it. But I think there's a non-zero chance that Bobby Miller just isn't that guy that we hoped he would be coming off the shoulder injury.
And this is coming from somebody who I loved Bobby Miller coming into the season. That was before we knew that he had a shoulder injury. So I would be looking to buy lower. I don't know if I would give those guys up. Maybe if I could get Bobby Miller in another piece, or it's just a really shallow league and you're shooting for upside, sure. But you know, the way those guys are pitching right now, and pitchers are kind of dropping left and right, and offense is going up. I think you might want to keep your pitchers around the way that the environment's kind of flipping a little bit here in the month of June. So as someone who really likes Bobby Miller, I don't know. I'm a little bit worried about that shoulder right now. Hopefully it's nothing and he gets back on track. Let's talk about one hitter who's been slumping in June. Isaac Paredes, 1 for 5 with his 12th home run here on Tuesday. But so far in the month, 228 batting average, 2 homers, just a 354 slug, a 645 OPS. The ground ball rate is up. The quality of contact, while it's never good, is even worse so far in the month of June. Chris, where are you at on Isaac Paredes? The Worryometer, 1 to 10.
I don't know how to talk about this guy.
Me neither.
Right? Because, like, okay, he's hitting worse. His expected WOBA in the month of June is 232, and that's dreadful. That is unplayable. In April, it was 299, which is not unplayable, but would be one of the worst regular hitters in baseball. And he had a 373 actual WOBA. So I don't know. Like, he's not hitting the ball as hard. I don't know if there's been a change in his pull rate, because we talk about it every time we talk about Isaac Paredes. He's kind of the poster boy of the pulled fly ball revolution. And I don't see much in his season long numbers to suggest that there's been a change. So I don't think I'm too worried about it, but it's also possible. I mean, we've seen, like, Kevin Biggio was pulling this trick for a while, and Nolan Arenado as well on a higher end, where whether it's losing the trick or just losing the marginal edge that you had, where you go from 86 mile per hour average exit velocity to 83, and all of a sudden you can't even do the trick anymore. So I worry a little bit about that, but all in all with Paredes, I'm probably at like a 3 or a 4.
Yeah, I was going to say a 2 or 3. Even with the bad June numbers, he's still batting 275 with an 821 OPS. So don't want to paint it completely in a negative light, because he has had a useful season. It just might be he needs to maximize every ounce of pulling the ball in the air to come close to hitting 30 home runs. And, you know, the pull rate is down a little bit. The fly ball rate's down a little bit. Maybe he's a 25 homer hitter instead of a 30 home run hitter, which makes him an okay fantasy player. It's just not the standout that we saw him to be last year. Again, that was Isaac Paredes. Let's take our final break, and we'll keep that meter running. Let's talk about the Dropometer right after this. Welcome back in. Let's fire up the Dropometer now. It's a similar thing. 1, you're not dropping this player anywhere. 10, you could drop this player in any league, anywhere. First up is George Springer, who had a big game here on Tuesday, but he has been awful overall this season. Went 3 for 5 with his 6th home run. Previous 17 games before this, 103 batting average, 28% strikeout rate, a 325 OPS. He is still 88% rostered, Chris. Where is George Springer on the Drop-O-Meter?
I was genuinely surprised that George Springer is still 88% rostered because
Same.
He's not really an impact bat anymore. The quality of contact has been significantly worse than last season, although not as bad as the overall numbers would make you think. That being said, if you haven't dropped him by now, we're coming off a good game. I would probably still try to hang on to him. You haven't needed the roster spot yet, right? So I would hang on to him because, the underlying numbers, 312 expected WOBA overall. It's a far cry from the 332 mark that he had last season, but it's still playable. Especially if he is going to continue to run a little bit. The pace is a little off from last year, but that might just be fewer opportunities more than anything. So I would say probably a 2 on the Drop-O-Meter at this point.
What is the percentage of leagues on CBS that are 3 outfielder leagues versus 5?
I would think it's probably close to half.
So then I am putting Springer at a 5 on the Drop-O-Meter. I think you can drop him in 3 outfielder leagues.
I think that's probably okay. Although the plate discipline is still pretty good for him, so it's not like he should be significantly worse in points leagues. And I think a hot week or 2 could get George Springer right back to the top of the lineup as well.
Some names that could be out there in shallower leagues that I would drop Springer for: Alec Burleson, who we've talked a lot about recently. In a categories league, Brenton Doyle. Like if you play in a 3 outfielder head-to-head categories league, Brenton Doyle, I know he's like kind of runs hot and cold, but the steals have been awesome this year. Obviously, you play him whenever he's at home. He's 77% rostered. I'm good with that. This one maybe a little bit more controversial, but hit another home run on Tuesday. Jesse Winker. It's very similar to Jerks and Profar, Chris. Like, I don't expect Jesse Winker to keep doing this all season, but he's been doing it, and he's been much more productive than George Springer. So in a 3 outfielder league, if Springer's just a hole in your lineup, I think I'd be all right with that.
Yeah, I get that, but on the other hand, if I'm making that move in a 3 outfielder league, I want, given that the replacement level is so high, I want a bigger swing. Like, does that make sense? Like, I feel like you could just sit George Springer. If you just, for whatever reason, there's just no good outfielders in your league and those guys are on waivers and you need someone to start, maybe I could see that, making the Winker for Springer move, but I think I still expect Springer to be better the rest of the way.
Let's talk about Ryan Jeffers. We did mention him last week as part of our ranking segment, and he hit a home run on Tuesday, his 13th home run. His previous 28 games before this one, he was hitting 161 with 2 homers and a 513 OPS. Jeffers has only started 11 of the past 20 games. He's still 80% rostered. Chris, where is he on the Drop-O-Meter 1 to 10?
That's the playing time is where it's really concerning because, slumps happen, but is the slump happening because he was overused early in the season and it's kind of a Sean Murphy 2023 situation where he's just run out of gas and they leaned on him too much? That makes it harder to trust. Or is it just they're sitting him because he hasn't been hot? If he gets hot again, they'll start playing him more. I could see either one. 80% is probably a little too high. That means that he's rostered in almost all 1 catcher leagues, and he probably doesn't need to be if he's not a standout in playing time. So I think Jeffers can be closer to a 6 or 7 on the Drop-O-Meter.
Would you drop him for Patrick Bailey, who we were hyping up earlier?
I think that's okay. Yeah, Bailey's got really, really good quality of contact numbers. He's cut his strikeout rate significantly. He's an elite defensive player. So, yeah, I think Patrick Bailey might just have the playing time edge on Ryan Jeffers.
It's close. I think I lowered Jeffers to 12 or 13. I mentioned where I moved Bailey up to, so I don't think I would do it. I get that the playing time has gone down. I think Jeffers could heat back up. He still has an 805 for the season. He has 13 home runs. So I think I'm closer to like a 1 or a 2 on the drop meter. I don't think I drop him in a 1-catcher league, but I get it if you wanted to just go with the hot hand. Again, it's like the replacement value in a 1-catcher league. You can kind of shuffle through those guys. So I do get that aspect of it. And the last name, I'm pretty sure this one's going to rank very highly. Brian Bayo, who got rocked by the Blue Jays, 7 earned runs over 2 1/3. He has a 5.55 ERA and a 1.47 WHIP.
Yeah, I mean, I had a little rant the last time we talked about Brian Bayo where I wondered why he's as rostered as he is before this really, really bad start. And I think we're probably going to see a correction there. Look, I don't think he's hopeless. I think Brian Bayo can still be a good pitcher, but we haven't seen anything at the major league level to justify the amount of faith that fantasy players have been showing in him, right? Like you talk about a guy with a 5.55 ERA, even before this, it was like 5.80 something, whose career best is a 3.80 ERA, was like a 4.40 last year, I think. Those types of players, even when they're young, don't tend to remain 75% rostered. So, yeah, I think it's totally fine to drop Brian Bayo. He's an 8 or a 9 on the drop meter.
The recipe for him to figure it out is Framber Valdez. Valdez, I know he's a lefty and Brian Bayo's a righty, but just in terms of gets lots of ground balls, doesn't miss a ton of bats, questionable control, but Framber Valdez has found a way to make it work. And he does enough to be efficient and give a ton of innings. Like that is the mold that Brian Bayo needs to kind of make it work. And yeah, I think he's pretty high on the drop-o-meter. I know, we kind of recommended him as a 2-star pitcher this week, and I feel bad about that, but
yeah,
this stuff happens.
And the thing I think about with the Framber comp and where I think Brian Bayo comes up short is probably in the command side of things, because Bayo's someone who works the edges of the strike zone really well, keeps the ball down. Even when you make contact, you're going to make weak contact. And that's not necessarily something that Brian Bayo has figured out how to do. I still like the stuff. There are still going to be starts where Brian Bayo is really good. I just think he's much more of a streamer than a must roster pitcher. Yeah,
I think that's fair as well. Let's talk waiver wire hitters, and we will rank all of the middle infielders. We spoke about Joey Ortiz earlier. He went 1 for 4 with a walk and his 7th home run. He has a 383 on base percentage as a rookie. It's been pretty impressive what Joey Ortiz has done for the Brewers. I believe he leads off against left-handed pitching as well. Nick Gonzalez had a wake-up game. He was struggling over the past week. 3 for 4 with a run and an RBI. His previous 7 games before this one, he was 1 for 23. The strikeout rate slowly climbing up a little bit. You expect his stats to look pretty good for Nick Gonzalez. Jonathan India remains red hot. 2 for 2 with 2 walks, 2 steals, 3 runs scored. In June, he's batting .361. The 2 homers, 17 runs scored, 3 steals, a .990 OPS for Jonathan India. How would you rank this group? Ortiz, Gonzalez, and India.
I think with a view on the long term, I'd still probably go Ortiz, Gonzalez, and India in that order. But this move up to the leadoff spot the last couple of games is very interesting for Jonathan India, because he opened the season, I believe, as the leadoff hitter for the Reds. Got off to a miserable start, got moved down the lineup. But if he's going to be up there, that's potentially very, very interesting. If he can, be a 275-ish hitter with 15 to 20 homers and 15 to 20 steals, all of a sudden you add a 90 run pace on top of that becomes a very, very interesting player. So in a shallower league, I wouldn't drop Ortiz or Gonzalez more so than Ortiz in terms, if I was going to drop one, but I do think India is a solid starter moving forward.
What's crazy is India and Ortiz average the same fantasy points per game on the season. It's 2.5 for both of those guys. So, India is obviously the hotter one right now.
Yeah.
So if you wanted to make that argument, just you need to get him on your team because someone else is going to pick him up. I think in a points league, I would go India, Ortiz, Gonzalez.
Yeah, Gonzalez has the worst plate discipline, so
Yeah.
that'll hold him back.
Just a 4% walk rate. In a categories league, it is a little bit closer. I like that India's running too.
Mm-hmm.
I think I would go Ortiz, India, Gonzalez. I'm not
I think that's fine.
abandoning ship on Nick Gonzalez. I like the improvements he's made this season, but Jonathan India does have a more established track record than someone like Gonzalez. What if I throw Rafaela and David Hamilton in this group, Chris? Because those are names that we've talked a ton about. Do either of those move to the top, Rafaela or David Hamilton?
I don't think so. Rafaela, especially, I think I'm the low guy on. His underlying numbers are still really, really bad despite the improved production over the past month or so. So I would probably still rank Ortiz, Gonzalez, India. I think it's fine to move Hamilton up in a roto league because of the stolen bases. He really is a standout there in a way that none of these other guys are a standout anywhere else. But Rafael is going to be at the bottom in both categories for me.
Yeah, I think in roto categories, I moved David Hamilton up to the top of this list. I haven't made this public on the site yet, but 17th at second base for David Hamilton in a roto league. Just he is such a standout. It skills right now. He's really fun to watch, and yeah, he just offers a completely different skill set.
Behind Bryce Terang still?
Yes, yeah, okay. I think I have Terang 7th.
What about Caballero?
So that is a great question. I have Hamilton one spot ahead of Caballero. Yeah. It's a similar skill set. Caballero's playing time has really fallen.
Yeah.
So I think it's all right to drop someone like Caballero for David Hamilton in a categories league if he's still out there. Two names in deeper leagues. Do either of these matter? Mike Toglia of the Rockies has been hitting well since being recalled on June 6th. He's batting .262 with 4 home runs and an .842 OPS. And Ben Rortvedt, for those in deeper 2-catcher leagues, last 12 games, he's batting .359 with 3 home runs and 14 RBI. Chris, does either one matter in a deeper format? Michael Toglia, Ben Rortvedt.
If all the catchers we were talking about earlier, Bo Naylor, Patrick Bailey, Hunter Goodman,
Ben Rice,
if they're all gone and you're in a 2-catcher league, then sure, Ben Rortvedt might matter, but I think it's unlikely he'll matter much more than that. Toglia, it's just he's continued to produce really good numbers at AAA. Obviously, it's an inflated offensive environment in Albuquerque and the PCL. Well, Coors Field is also an inflated offensive environment, so it just comes down to how much you want to trust the Rockies continuing to play him, and you can never really rely on that. So I would say, what's your roster? 12%? I don't know. I could see 20% being reasonable, but my expectations aren't super high.
Yeah, I think 15-team roto leagues where you have the 5 outfielders, the corner infielder, can you stream Toglia at home? I think that's something that's totally fine. Let's talk waiver wire pitchers. And Zach Littell was solid up against the Mariners. 5 innings, 2 runs, 6 strikeouts. He had 14 whiffs on 72 pitches. That is a 19.4% swinging strike rate. And he did change things up in this one. He threw more sliders and more splitters. The splitter especially is a really good pitch. So if that's something that Littell continues to do, then I think there could be some interest in re-adding him. And, look, I want to get this off my chest, Chris, because we got like a, I don't know, 2-star review on Apple. Someone yelled at us for telling them to drop Reese Olson and then picking him back up. And it's like, yes, maybe we messed up with Reese Olson. But for someone like Zach Littell, like, if something changes, like him throwing his splitter more, then I do think he should re-enter the conversation, right? It's not just like, hey, we're telling you to pick him back up for no reason. Like, something has changed, obviously, here. So, my bad about Reese Olson, but Zach Littell, maybe it's changed.
I like Reese Olson.
We're gonna get things wrong.
I think Reese Olson is a fine pitcher, but like, I don't think that's like, I'm sorry, your season is not hinging on Reese Olson one way or the other. So a 2-star review because we made, all right, we're not getting into it. It's fine. Zach Littell, I think, is a solid pitcher. I don't know how much interest I have in him outside of points leagues because I think he's a lot more valuable as a SPARP.
Yeah.
And there are a decent number of SPARPs, although we've lost a couple lately. So, Yeah, I think that Zach Littell is probably a must roster in a head-to-head points league. In Roto, strikeouts are going to be pretty iffy, even if he leans on the splitter and slider more. So I'm not going to say he's must roster. I think he's a matchups dependent guy.
I was just going to say, it feels like a matchups play. Obviously, going up against the Mariners, they strike out a ton. I think that somewhat explains what we got here from Zach Littell. What about Kyle Hendricks? He has turned in 2 strong starts since being reinserted into the Cubs rotation. He went 7 innings, 2 runs, 4 strikeouts, 11 whiffs on 100 pitches at the San Francisco Giants. And this is now 2 starts in a row where he has mixed in the curveball more. And in a small sample this season, that curveball has been really good for Kyle Hendricks. A 233 expected WOBA, a 35% whiff rate. So this is another one, Chris, where something has changed here for Hendricks. And in deeper formats, he's 14% rostered. Yeah, like 12-team roto leagues or deeper where everyone has to start 9 pitchers. I think Kyle Hendricks could matter. He was still good last year.
Yeah, it's an uninteresting and unexciting profile, right? Like Kyle Hendricks' best case scenario is Tyler Anderson, right? I think he has better control than Tyler Anderson.
We've talked about guys like Kyle Gibson and Mike recently, right? Like
I think
Hendricks is in that mold, I guess.
There are always going to be pitchers like this who slide between 30 and 70% roster rate based on whether they've got 2 starts, whether they've got good matchups, whether they're just rolling right now. And Kyle Gibson is currently rolling. He pitched really well last season for the most part. So yeah, I think he's a decent ad, but it's also one that if you miss out on it, I don't think you're going to regret missing out on Kyle Hendricks. So I would probably rather chase Christian Scott if if he's available in your league. Hayden Birdsong, who was the other one we were talking about earlier today?
David Festa.
Like, I think I'd rather just go with the mystery box there because Kyle Hendricks is not a boat. Right. Either way, he's, a scooter or something. Scooter, not schooner. I know that was maybe confusing with the boat reference before that. But, a scooter's a fine way to get around in, a pinch if you don't have a lot of bags and stuff to carry. So he's fine.
Is he a razor scooter or one of these?
Oh, like a little, like a Lime. Yeah.
Okay. It's pretty useful. That's a pretty useful scooter. So
yeah.
We'll see where Kyle Hendricks goes from here. Let's get into some of the leftovers and making sense of this hot stretch from Hunter Brown, who has turned in 7 straight quality starts. This one against the Rockies in Houston. Obviously a great matchup. 6 shutout innings, 2 hits, 3 walks, 7 strikeouts. He had 20 whiffs on 94 pitches, 12 on the fastball. The velocity on that fastball was up. It looked awesome. Last 7 starts, it's a 1.47 ERA, a .88 whip. Chris, only thing I will point out, the matchups in these starts have been amazing. Rockies on the road, White Sox, Tigers, Twins, Mariners, and the Angels twice. What do you think about this recent run from Hunter Brown?
Look, he's got a 147 ERA over that 7-start stretch. So, of course, he's not going to continue doing that. He's not 2019 Jacob deGrom. Like that kind of goes without saying. Even if he faced these kind of matchups the rest of the way, I would not expect Hunter Brown to have a sub-2 ERA. But I also don't think the matchups just prove that Hunter Brown is a fraud. He has made some changes in his approach, most notably throwing that sinker more, which generated a ton of weak contact today. 6 balls in play, 72.3 mile per hour average exit velocity on those 6 balls in play. That's become a really good pitch for him. And, he might just have like 3 good swing and miss pitches around that sinker. And the sinker's not the centerpiece or anything. He throws it 15 to 20% of the time, most starts since introducing it. But the 4-seamer can be a really good swing and miss pitch. It's got the changeup, the knuckle curve, even the slider occasionally. So I think, if we set the over-under at a 3.5 ERA, I think I'd still take the over the rest of the way. But I think Hunter Brown absolutely should be a must roster pitcher. And as someone, I'd be a little surprised at this point if we were dropping the rest of the way.
Yes, and I do agree with you. By the way, I didn't mean to sound like the pessimist on Hunter Brown. Just pointing out those matchups were really good. After this start, his xFIP is 3.53, and entering this start, his expected ERA was 3.44. So I think a mid threes ERA. I think you're pretty spot on there with Hunter Brown rest of season. If you picked him up, just continue to roll because he's been really, really good. Did you realize these bats were heating up? I've got 5 names. Josh Lowe, over his last 11 games, batting 324 with 3 homers and 4 steals. Byron Buxton, last 12 games, batting 372 with 3 homers and 2 steals. Tyler O'Neill, 15 games since coming off the IL, 333 batting average, 5 homers, a 1088 OPS. Brian Reynolds in June, batting 360 with 6 homers and a 1081 OPS. And Vlad Jr. is all in the hair, Chris. Since cutting the hair, 6 games, 370 batting average, 3 homers, 3 doubles, 10 RBI. Anything to add on this group?
Yeah, I did notice that Byron Buxton and Josh Lowe were playing better lately because I have them on pretty much all of my teams.
I was surprised Buxton is still 89% rostered, though.
Yeah, especially with how many points leagues are out there, because he's someone that, I do have in a handful of points leagues, and I don't know if I've been able to start him really at any point. Not just because he's been bad, but because, I think one of them I have Matt Olson and Vladimir Guerrero on that team. I'm not going to seed either of those guys to put Byron Buxton in a utility spot. So yeah, I think it's a little surprising that he's 89% roster, but again, it's kind of like, I'm blanking on the pitcher we talked about earlier today. I don't know. If you haven't dropped him by now, I guess is the way I would say it. Now you don't have a reason to drop Byron Buxton, so I wouldn't. The one, Vladimir Guerrero, I understand he always has good expected stats, and the fact that he continues to have good expected stats may mean less because we assume he's just going to continue to underperform. But I guess the question is, what if he doesn't, right? Like, what if he had this long stretch where he underperformed and that carried over to the start of the season, 363 expected WOBA, 308 WOBA in April. Since then, he's been a lot closer to where he's supposed to be. Not quite, the elite 400 X WOBA that he's had since May 1st. But what if he's someone who can get to 85% of his expected stats? And that's a 370 WOBA. I don't think that's unreasonable. That would still be assuming he's one of the outlier underperformers and can still be a significant difference maker. So I think you missed any buy low window that might have been there for Vladimir Guerrero. I don't think it's a sell high window, though.
I agree. And I have fought the urge to move him down in the first base rankings just because Josh Naylor has been so good this season. And you could still argue that, I know Scott moved Naylor ahead. Like, I wouldn't argue with Scott for doing that move, but just seeing that Vlad Jr. still ranks 10th among qualified hitters in expected WOBA this season, it just I think elite hitter.
A big part of it just comes down to, I wouldn't say we're seeing Josh Naylor's best case scenario right now because he's hitting 230, right? Like that can't be his best case scenario, but he's a lot closer to his best case scenario than Vladimir Guerrero Jr. is right now. And we know that the best case scenario for both of them is Vlad's competing for a triple crown. I still think that's in there. I still think that's a possible outcome. So, I'm not expecting that, but I still have Vlad ahead of Josh Naylor. Naylor has his own limitations that, I think the run production is incredible and always has been, but he might continue to struggle with batting average. So I've kept Vlad Jr. ahead of him, and I still feel good about it.
Some other quick leftovers. I've got 5 pitchers here. 2 that pitched very well. 1 was okay, and 2 that were not. Any thoughts on Skubal, who was great against the Phillies? Seth Lugo, awesome against the Marlins. Kevin Gausman, quality start at the Red Sox, but still kind of meh. And then 2 who were pretty bad, Hunter Green and Mackenzie Gore. I guess you could just say that they're high variance pitchers, but anything to add on that group of 5?
Okay, there was like some talk about Tarek Skubal and like regressing before this start, and like there was like, oh, he's taking a step back, and it was like 3 starts where he was slightly less dominant than normal. I still think he's arguably the best pitcher in baseball right now. So no concerns with Tarek Skubal. Seth Lugo, I still expect significant regression. His xERA was still above 4.5 entering this start. I think he's probably closer to a 4 ERA than a 3 ERA pitcher. Gosman, I think, is probably closer to a 4 ERA than a 3 ERA pitcher. And I think he's probably just a guy. There's going to be some high points. There's going to be some low points. But at this point, I think he's just I don't think Kevin Gosman is a must-start pitcher anymore, I will say. And then Gore, we talked about Green a little bit earlier. I think the environmental factors and the fact that he wasn't feeling well, I think helps explain his struggles there. Gore's been a little iffy lately. I know the whip is super high for the season. It's like up to 1.4, I believe now. That's pretty bad. And look, maybe it's just he's a strikeout specialist who disappoints with his ratio stats. I still think that's a lot better than what we expected. I still think there's the whip, especially there's room for growth. I wouldn't expect a 1.4 moving forward. CJ Abrams has low-key been pretty bad defensively at shortstop this season. I think he's first percentile and outs above average. And he's just really struggled with like a lot of what should be routine plays, especially that I think is probably hurting Mackenzie Gore and the Nationals pitchers. So that's one factor, but I still feel Mackenzie Gore's a must roster pitcher, if not a must start one.
Some other hitting leftovers. Bryce Harper on fire right now, 2 for 4 with his 20th home run. Same thing for Freddie Freeman, his 12th home run. And the June numbers have been awesome for both of those guys. Quickly, Chris, who would you rather have rest of season, Bryce Harper or Freddie Freeman?
I have Freddie Freeman ranked ahead, and I can't think of a good reason to move Bryce Harper ahead, but they're both top 10 players overall for me in both formats, I believe. So it's splitting hairs.
Well, I moved Bryce Harper up to number 1 in my first base rankings ahead.
Sure, that's fine.
Freddie Freeman, 3.9 fantasy points per game versus 3.4 for Freeman. The expected WOBA is higher for Harper this season than it is for Freeman. Look, these things can flip, especially for someone like Freeman who just goes
Freeman's red hot, and I'm sure that number's a lot higher in June than it was before. And obviously the track record for both of these guys is incredible. So I'm not going to argue one way or the other, really.
Yeah, it's razor thin regardless. Aaron Judge, well, the Yankees had a rough one, but Aaron Judge and Juan Soto did not. They combined 3 for 6, 2 homers, 6 RBI, 3 walks, and Judge hit his 29th home run. Soto hit his 19th, and Shohei Ohtani 2 for 4 with his 24th home run. Quick thought here, Chris. Who would you rather have rest of season? Number 1 spot, Ohtani or Judge? It feels like it's between those 2 guys.
I believe I actually have had Bobby Witt as my number 1 player in Roto because of the steals, but he's not running a crazy amount, so maybe that's overrating him. But Judge and Ohtani are 2 and 3, and I think they're probably certainly closer to being number 1 than either is to number 4. I would probably give the edge to Ohtani, and I think it just comes down to Judge's injury history if you have to split hairs between them.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Ketel Marte has been awesome, 2 for 4 with his 16th home run. He entered Tuesday as a top 4 second baseman in both head-to-head points and in Roto, and a crazy game for Jerks and Profar. Got into a shouting match with Keibert Ruiz in the first inning, then got hit by a pitch by Mackenzie Gore. Later in the game, he hit a grand slam. It was just an emotional game, some back and forth, and Profar just keeps doing it, man. He's up to 54 RBI and 898 OPS on the season. So shout out to Profar. Great. I mean, I can't even say bounce back. It's like breakout season, career year for Jurickson Profar. Some bullpen updates for the Guardians. Emmanuel Clase struck out 1 for his 25th save. For the Dodgers, Evan Phillips struck out 1 for his 13th. Nice to see him back in that 9th inning. For the Marlins, Tanner Scott gave up a hit, but he picked up his 10th save. For the Brewers, Trevor McGill was unavailable. Elvis Paguero struck out 1 for his 2nd save. For the D-backs, Paul Sewald allowed a hit, but picked up his 10th. For the Padres, Robert Suarez entered with a 3-run lead. He gave up an unearned run, but picked up his 20th save. And for the Angels, Carlos Estevez struck out 2 for his 15th save.
Can I add a bullpen note as well?
Yes.
The freaking Cubs bullpen is so bad that they blew a Camilo Doval save opportunity in this one. They're so bad that they're ruining other teams' closers. Camilo Doval, I think, was ready to pitch the 9th. They had a 2-run lead. Which one of their terrible pitchers?
Oh,
Colton Brewer,
who I picked up in an NL only league this week.
Gave up 2 runs in this one. That's annoying. Camilo Doval should have had a save opportunity here. That's dumb.
It is. It's very dumb. To stream or not to stream on Wednesday, and I believe yesterday we gave out the Spencers, Turnbull at the Tigers and Arrighetti versus the Rockies. And if we're looking for one more,
I don't love anyone else.
Yeah. Birdsong in his debut.
Yeah, I mean it's the debut, so it could be one of those the hitters don't know anything about him, they're not used to him. I could see that being okay, but I certainly don't want to stake my reputation on it.
Are the Padres good against lefties? They are 23rd in WOBA against lefties. DJ Hers could work at the Padres.
I just wish his last start hadn't been at Coors so I could know something more, because he had that crazy good start against the Marlins, pitched at Coors Field, was okay. And now it's just I have no idea. I could see a good start there, though.
On Thursday, there are very limited options as a smaller slate. Maybe I'll just throw a few names out there. You tell me. Jordan Hicks against the Cubs. Andrew Abbott at the Cardinals. Miles Mikolas versus the Reds. It's not in Cincinnati.
Yeah, Mikolas and Abbott are the only two that I think I like. Just Hicks has not gone 6 innings since April.
All right, we're gonna wrap there. What is happening? Can I wrap this show up? Oh my gosh. All right, let's try this again. We are going to wrap there for Chris. I am Frank. Thanks as always for tuning into Fantasy Baseball today. Please make sure to follow and leave a 5-star rating on Apple or Spotify, and we will be back again tomorrow. Bye-bye.